So I heard that Nintendo Labo is making a VR kit, so can we just call it the Virtual Boy 2.0 yet?
One of my favorite titles of last year was Monster Hunter World. I loved how open the hunting environments were. I loved the little quality of life touches. The gameplay felt like the next step up for the series' deliberately paced combat system. But most importantly, it reminded me just how much I love Monster Hunter as a series. I entered the series with Monster Hunter Tri on the Wii, I never even owned a PSP, and ever since, I've looked forward to every hunt that popped up on Capcom's guild board. And that's mostly because of the excitement of what new monsters I'd be able to sink my blades into. And while I've covered 3 Ultimate in the past, there have been a few more games that have come out since then, so I figured it was time to cover my experience with the series as a whole. And even among the monsters I've faced, it was hard to simply pick just 10. But I figured I'd let you all know where I stand right now, especially since a new expansion for World is on the way this year. Since this covers all the games I've played, including 3 Ultimate, you may see some familiar faces on this list. And for the record, I'm focusing on the main species, not any variants or subspecies. So let's get to talking about some fierce, intimidating, and awesome monsters. It's game time! Okay, so I might not think quite as highly of the Lagiacrus as I used to, but I still think that this thundering Leviathan is awesome. Being the flagship monster of the first game I played in this series, this monster left a big impression on me. First thing that caught my eye was that crazy design. I think a big part of it was the color scheme, mainly its striking blue hide and those intimidating spikes on its back. It also didn't hurt that it sent me into a panic when he crashed into the 5th quest in the game. Dude, what the hell? I was hunting for monster guts and now I'm swimming for my life! I talked about this beast's attacks from 3 Ultimate in my old list, the Underwater Rush, the Electrical Field, and the Thunderballs. Nobody does it better. But the thing that made me think twice about this thing was that fighting underwater made things feel sluggish while monsters had a massive mobility advantage. It felt so much better fighting it on land than underwater. Which is why I love how they reworked this fight for generations. By this point, water gave way to ledges and vaulting, which is honestly leagues better than swimming through jello. Not to mention... Holy crap, where did he learn this stuff? What gym did he go to? Where can I sign up? I need to drop this weight! Alright, let's cap a Sarathian. Who knows, I might be able to finally get that last material I need for that upgrade. Yeah, there she is. Alright, open wide, you bitch! Come on, seriously? You're just gonna scare my quarry away like this? Okay, that does it. Welcome to the list.
Number 9 specifically.
This, my fellow hunters, is the Gios, a flying wyvern whose defining features are razor-sharp scales and a taste for blood, with the former fully facilitating the latter. This high-level monster was what introduced the bleeding status condition, which causes damage whenever you use stamina. Considering how much running and dodging you do on a regular basis, this makes what the Gios can do especially dangerous. Even without the scales, this beast has a host of attacks with its talons, horn, and tail, a few of which are unique among flying wyverns due to its unusual frame. To put it simply, this thing is downright savage, and fighting it can put an inexperienced hunter on edge, made even more apparent by the crazy and intense music that accompanies the battle. I always appreciate when a monster has its own music, especially when it enhances the mood as it does here. It underscores just how much of a threat the Gios is. Hey, when the guild determines that a swarm of these mother fifers is a bigger threat than the Kushala Daura, you know things are getting real. Monster Hunter World is great. I've already mentioned several things I enjoy about the game, but I've yet to delve into its cast, most of which consists of new monsters. True, there were a few returning veterans like the Wrath Duo, the Kush, and everyone's least favorite Galloping Lightning Rod, but the new faces outnumbered the old, meaning it was important for the newcomers to make an impression. And many of them did, one of which was the Tobi-Kadachi. The Toru Adachi is probably my favorite early game monster because it feels like a solid mix of both new and old in terms of monster design. It borrows some elements from the fan favorite Nargacuga, both being based on gliding rodents for example. It also inherits speed and aggression from its nocturnal cousin, making it a threat already. but what Narg didn't have is the power of thunder, making Adachi basically akin to a mega evolved Manectric. Yeah, this is basically a skill check monster, so if you've been plodding along and have somehow gotten this far, you're in for a wake-up call. Its mobility and thunderous attacks mean that it's best to be more defensive than before until you can understand its attacks, and those attacks can especially hurt if you've been struck with Thunder Blight. Another thing that sets the Rocky Nodachi apart from Nargs is how well it uses its environment. When it climbs onto the trees, it can use a number of attacks which range from moderately damaging to "ow, I'll be feeling that in the morning." Thankfully, for everything the monster can do using the environment, you can do an equal amount right back. Sometimes, nature is your greatest frenemy. I've brought up the Fated 4 of Monster Hunter Generations before, mainly how the Glavenus gave me trouble the first time I fought it. However, of these 4 beasts, I found myself gravitating towards the Mizutsune. You first encounter this lovely Leviathan while doing business for Yakumo Village, and like the other members of the Fated 4, it becomes your goal to become strong enough to take this thing down. First off, let's talk about the Mizutsune's design. It's pretty clear that it was crafted with beauty in mind with its slender frame and graceful ornamentations. Its head and back are covered with fins that give off the appearance of cherry blossoms, which turn a brilliant red when it becomes enraged. And the oriental instruments of its battle theme give off the aura of a Japanese dance. As for its fight, it starts with the standard abilities with the Leviathan, including powerful physical attacks with its body and tail, along with a water cannon similar to the Plesioth, except it's not nearly as spam-happy with it. What sets it apart from other Leviathan monsters, and in fact every other monster in the series to date, is bubbles. Yeah, bubbles. The Mizutsune is the first and currently only monster that uses soap, or whatever that stuff is, as a means of both mobility and attack. With all the suds it spreads around, it gains quite a lot of mobility, meaning it can cover a lot of distance quickly, forcing you to stay on your toes. It can even blast you with gigantic bubbles that cause bubble blight. The interesting thing about this condition is that it actually begins as a buff, giving you additional evasion and constitution. Of course, this doesn't last. Take a guess what happens when it stacks. You can't exactly kill a monster when you're sliding around uncontrollably now, can you? Yep, another familiar face on this list, and honestly, why wouldn't the Zinogre deserve to be here? One of the first fanged wyverns in the series, it really stood out among its peers at the time, and still holds up as one of the best monsters in the series in my opinion. First off, its wolf-like design is exceptionally bold, with the golden and aqua fur that covers its body, and its imposing features. Features that it puts to some serious use. For one thing, its powerful legs give it some serious speed and mobility. And those legs aren't just for bounding around, oh no, they're tipped with sharp claws for slashing and pouncing, and sometimes just for strutting because it feels like it. Its other side is just as powerful with a punishing tail slam. But that's just the beginning. At times it'll start to charge up electricity by attracting thunderbugs. Normally this is a chance to get in a few hits, but in exchange, its attacks begin to amp up as it gains thunder attacks such as a lightning ball. And after a few times, it'll actually go Super Saiyan, and now all of its attacks are electric and even more powerful. It can even call down lightning in this form, but you can break the charge by dealing enough damage to it, which you'll have your best chance to do by knocking it down. And, this is hilarious, if you happen to have a bug net on you, you can catch the bugs in its mane while it's knocked down, and you can even break its charge by doing so. I know it's not the most manly of ways when dealing with a monster, but having creative ways to weaken a monster definitely helps enhance the fight. Last thing, the battle music. This theme is fast-paced and frantic, giving you the impression that this monster is raring for a fight. Now that's music design for you. And while we're on the topic of monsters that help make the third generation great, in this corner, standing tall at 53'8", weighing in at a massive 27 tons, hailing from the Burning Peaks, ranked number 5 in the Monster Boxing Association, it's the slime-swinging slugger, Brachydios. Sporting a tough blue hide, a punishing club-like tail, and a horn and fists covered in explosive mold, this hulking brute wyvern provides a frantic and fast-paced fight with an intense driving battle theme that I can't help but love. And while it will come out swinging, don't expect it to keep it clean. While it usually lets its fists do the talking, the message it sends is literally explosive. The mold that covers its fists is like nitroglycerin. You get slimed, and it becomes a ticking time bomb set to blow at the slightest provocation. And it's not just from a direct hit either. It can punch the ground and leave slime puddles on the ground, as well as pounce at you from like 20 meters away. Keep in mind that this is even before it goes into rage mode and its slime turns a bright yellow. This is when the fight kicks into overdrive. The slime doesn't wait to explode anymore, it blows up on contact. This makes its punches even more dangerous, and it even puts its horn to use, either with an explosive shockwave or a massive area explosion. What I love most about fighting this thing is that it's so up close and personal. No fireballs, no water cannon bullcrap, just a heavyweight bruiser who's up in your face and won't let up for a minute. It's a battle that keeps you on the move as you look for every opportunity to put this beast down for the count. Imagine if gauntlets were a weapon in Monster Hunter. You'd be able to fight this monster like Little Mac.
Okay, come to think of it, why aren't gauntlets a thing in Monster Hunter yet? Get on that, Capcom!
With each generation of Monster Hunter, there's been the base game, and then there's a follow-up game which builds on it. We haven't gotten all of these in the West, but the Ultimate versions up the ante from the original games by putting hunters to the test in G rank. These fights push the skills of hunters to their limits against monsters that hit much harder than usual, ending with a battle against a unique monster which serves as the game's final boss. In the case of 4 Ultimate, the final boss is the Gogmazios. This gigantic elder dragon is quite a sight to see. Jet black, gangly wings dripping with black tar, black smoke coming off its body, and what looks like fiery coal glowing inside of it. It's like a gigantic living furnace, and it's out to destroy you. And it's actually built up pretty well for a super boss. Throughout G-Rank, you learn about how this monstrosity stole the first Dragonator, and now it's approaching your turf. And it's not to be taken lightly, especially with what it has at its disposal. That tar? Yeah, it's not just for show. You get caught in it, and your mobility takes a hit. Oh, and did I mention that this tar is explosive? Yeah, much like the Brachydios and its slime, that tar explodes after a while, and it hurts. And it's not just the tar that drips off its body. It also has one of the most dangerous attacks in the entire game. It's Tar Laser. If you can see it coming, run. The blast radius and damage output is ridiculous, and that goes double if it goes airborne. Yeah, despite the appearance of its wings, it can really fly, and when it does, watch out, because it will spread that tar laser over the entire arena. Yeah, sounds a bit like Bull, doesn't it? Except, you're in the battle quarters. Like many special arenas, this place has plenty of weapons you can use to give as much as you take. You've got plenty of places to mount the monster, you've got cannons and ballistae, a binding shot, and of course, the Dragonator! And not only the one in the wall either. You can actually dislodge the one in its back and use it against it for a crap ton of damage. And best of all, there's the Demolisher. And once you use it to blast the beast, Mark of a Hero starts to play, marking your final push to victory. It's a thrilling battle with a powerful monster that you've been working so hard to reach, and the payoff is worth it in spades. Number 3 brings us back to the New World, and we're delving straight into its fetid bowels. The major plot point of Monster Hunter World is the Elder Dragon Crossing, in which many Elder Dragons cross the sea to the New World. And just like in 4 Ultimate, you have an early encounter with an Elder Dragon, the living mountain known as the Zora Magdaros. More on that later, but he's not the only Elder to worry about. Among the areas you encounter in your research is the armpit of the New World, the Rotten Vale. To wit, a monster graveyard. And reigning over this domain of decay is a fiend that's as much Elder Lich as it is Elder Dragon. I mean, when you first find the Ballhuzza, he emerges from a mountain of bones after draining the life from a Gyros.
Yeah, that's gonna be a yikes for me, dog.
God, is that thing ugly. Its flesh looks like it's barely hanging off of its bones, and its wings look like they shouldn't allow it to even fly. It's absolutely hideous, and I love it. Not to mention, the smoke coming off of his body is actually a noxious miasma, or effluvium, that will prove deadly unless you have the proper equipment. And it's not just an aura thing, oh no, it's a large part of the Ballhuzza's arsenal. It can either exhale it violently, similar to a laser blast, or expel it underneath its body in a small area of effect attack. And there's a reason why your equipment matters here. If you're hit by it without resistance, you'll suffer Effluvium's negative effect immediately, meaning your max HP will be cut in half. So either bring resistance or plenty of nullberries. This holds double when it goes into rage mode, because simply standing near it can drain your health, like it's literally sucking the life out of you. but even with all that it can do, it's not nearly as cheap as it seems at first. You can see some of its strongest attacks coming, giving you time to get out of the way and strike back. At the same time, it will keep you on your toes knowing what can happen if you mess up. It's like you're fighting the forces of the underworld itself. Eat your undead heart out, Castlevania! Back to Zora Magdaros. Just look at this beast. So massive, so imposing, so underwhelming. In spite of the presence this monster has, you spend most of your time fighting it divided between taking out magma cores and pelting it with siege weapons.
Where's my Draginator?
Yeah, I can't help but feel like fighting this monster was just a way to introduce the real star of the show. Yeah, now we're talking. Fighting a gigantic dragon on top of the elder dragon you are seeking to capture? Now you know it's getting real. And the Nurger Ganzi is a total freaking beast, no two ways about it. A body covered in sharp thorns that regenerate, horns that could bore through steel, powerful wings. This elder dragon has it all in terms of design. Another thing that the Nurger Ganzi has going for it is how well the battle with this beast is built up. It shows up not only in the first encounter with Zora, but the second as well, as it tries to stop you from driving the Colossus out of the Everstream. And from that point on, you see evidence of its interference with the ecosystem, from seeing monsters in different habitats, corpses of other monsters, and eventually a trip into the imposing Elder's Recess, where further investigation reveals the truth about the Nurger Ganzi. This thing is an elder dragon that eats other elder dragons! Wow, the Forbidden Land from Shadow of the Colossus must sound like an all-you-can-eat buffet to this thing. And when you fight the beast for real, it's downright awesome. It's a battle that's very challenging, but at the same time, it's a relatively fair fight, with a minimal amount of bullcrap. The Nurger Ganzi's attacks are punishing when they hit you, don't get me wrong, but these attacks can be learned with a level of effort that doesn't demand the kind of perfection that some of the more aggravating monsters in the series do. Yes, it has a devastating dive bomb that it uses when its spikes grow and turn black, and it has a wide area of impact, but even that can be dodged with the proper timing. And actually taking this beast down is satisfying as hell, knowing you took down an apex predator with your own hands.
Hey, the guy's been disrupting the ecosystem for the sake of its next meal. I think it had it coming.
Now before we move on, here are a few honorable mentions. Nargacuga, a swift predator with the cunning of a bat and the power of a wolf. Nursilla, a creepy spider monster which wears the hides of other monsters as armor. Xenojiva, the alien-like final boss of World's main story. Rathalos, the poster boy of the series and also a damn good Smash boss. And Zamtrios, with its three forms which range from badass to just plain silly.
If I can be perfectly honest for a moment, Nurger Ganzi was dangerously close to making it to the top of this food chain. I mean, it ticked off all the boxes I love in a flagship monster. Great design, great battle, great build-up, but the thing that kept it from the top was that we never got to actually see it eat an Elder Dragon, which is basically its lore. I mean, how is it supposed to eat something as gigantic as the Zora Magdaros? It's a case of show, don't tell, and honestly, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate had more to show for it.
Yep, Gormogon is taking home this one. Everything the Nurger Ganzi had going for it, this flagship of Gen 4 tops it in virtually every category. Let's start by talking design, and I absolutely love it. It has the look of a genuine villain to it, with its four powerful legs, its black and purple color scheme, and its cape-like wings which double as arms that give it the presence of a Dark Lord. And how appropriate, since this thing is basically the main villain of the whole story. You first encounter this fiend on a stormy boat ride, and you get a taste of its power, but you manage to drive it away.
I think we all know where this is going, so let's just get to the next part.
Sure enough, this is only the beginning of a long rivalry with Gore. After saving a group of fellow hunters from the beast, you face it for real, and it's a thrill. From its powerful attacks to the way it grows glowing purple horns and darkens the skies while in rage mode, it lets you know that it's in charge. But the real threat is the new mechanic it introduces, the Frenzy Virus. If you get infected, you have to keep attacking it so that you can power up and avoid getting weakened, adding a new dimension to this fight. And several future battles as well. That's right, just when you think you've beaten it, it wills itself back from the brink, more powerful than ever, evolving into the elder dragon known as the Shagaru Magawa. And it spreads its virus to monsters the world over, and these frenzied monsters will stand between you and your final battle with Shagaru. And I can't think of a better way to sum it up than the cutscene before the climax atop the sanctuary under a blackened sky. To Shagaru, the hunter is no longer simply a nuisance to be brushed aside and eaten. No, now you're its nemesis, and it's ready to fight you to the death. And it's a fight to remember, with Shagaru's attacks being more powerful than ever, with virus clouds that last longer, and additional airborne attacks topping off its already impressive moveset, making it all the more triumphant when you bring the beast down for good, as the clouds part and the skies clear, heralding your climactic victory. It's moments like this, battles like this, and monsters like this that make the series worth playing.
I'm the Quarter Guy, and it just dawned on me while I was writing this script that Monster Hunter is celebrating its 15th anniversary this year. I might not have been with this series since it began, but I can honestly rank it among my favorite franchises, which is why I'm really excited about what Monster Hunter World Iceborne has to offer. I mean, the game's been with one ice monster for long enough.
Well, spring is here, and with it comes baseball season. And for me, I recall the traditions of Brewers baseball. The terrible parking at Miller Park, the sound of the organ, peanut shells on the ground, vendors selling beer, the sausage race, singing Roll Out the Barrel during the 7th inning stretch, and of course Bernie Brewer going down the slide with every Brewers homer. He's going to be doing that a lot this year, I already know. Next time, Arcade Retrospectives, Ninja Baseball Batman. It's game time!